Okay, 1.5, measuring and constructing angles. So the vocabulary words, the first one is interior of the angle, and it is the region that contains all the points between the sides of an angle. Okay, the exterior of the angle then is the region that contains all the points outside of the angle. Okay, so example 1 says a lighthouse keeper measures the angles formed by the lighthouse at point M and 3 boats. Name 3 angles shown in the diagram. Okay, so if you remember back to the very first lesson, I kind of talked about this briefly at the very bottom of our front page. Okay, so the first angle that I see would be this top angle here. Okay, and I'll go ahead and outline that in red so you can see it here. Okay, so I can see that angle. So I would call that angle J. M has to be in the middle because that's where my point is, and then K. All right, then let me switch colors so you can see better here. I also see this bottom angle, outline in purple. Okay, down here. So then I would say angle K. Again, M has to be next, and then L. You could switch the order of the 2 on the outside, but not the middle one. And then lastly, let me switch one more time. I see this giant angle out here. Goes out to J, and then out here again, right? So I would name that one angle JML. So there are 3 angles there shown. All right, so it says measuring and classifying angles. A protractor helps you approximate the measure of an angle, and the measure is usually given in degrees. So let me grab one. The blue one here so you can hopefully see. So this is a protractor, okay? They don't all have this fancy dial on here, so I'm just gonna leave that to the side here, okay? But that, yes, is a protractor. All right, so a protractor postulate then is just a rule about protractors. It says points A and B on rays OA and OB can be matched 1-to-1 with real numbers 0 to 180 degrees. Okay, again, we measure them in degrees. Okay, that's that little sign there. Okay, the measure of an angle is the absolute value of the difference between real numbers matched with ray OA and ray OB on protractor. Okay, and it says you can classify angles by their measure. Oh, okay, so the one thing I want to talk about before I go on to that, so if I am measuring an angle, you know how before when we talked about segments, let me put it up here, I talked about like segment AB equaling something and I didn't make the little line. So in this case, when I'm talking about angles, I would say the measure, I put the lowercase m, of the angle, we'll call it ABC, is equal to some number of degrees. Okay, so whenever I'm talking about the number, I'm talking about a lowercase m, so the measure of the angle is equal to a number. Okay, so now let's go down here. We can classify angles by their measures. So different types of measures here. We have an acute angle, which means that it is between 0 degrees and 90 degrees. Okay, a right angle, okay, it'll always have this box over here in the corner. If it does not have that box, you may not assume that it is right, okay, unless it says with the box or it says 90 degrees, okay, even though it looks like it's 90, maybe it's 89 or maybe it's 91, okay, so it has to have that there, and it is, again, exactly 90 degrees, okay. The next one is obtuse, and that is between 90 degrees and 180 degrees. And the last one is a straight angle, and it is exactly 180 degrees. So a straight line, i.e. straight, right, is called a straight angle, and it's 180 degrees. Okay, turn your page there. Example 2, it says find the measure of each angle, then classify each angle. So it's wanting us to find GHK. So GH to K. All right, so it has that protractor there for you already. So you can choose either the top set of numbers or the bottom set of numbers, but you have to stick with it once you decide for that angle. So in this case, I'm gonna go with the top numbers, and I see 0, and I see 120, it would be between 120 and 130, so that's exactly 125. So if I did 0 minus 125 and took the absolute value, it'd just be 125. So then I say that the measure of angle GHK equals 125 degrees, okay? Has to have the little m, and it has to have the degree sign if you want your points, okay? Part B is JHL. So let's see here, JHL. Okay, well maybe this time I think that the bottom one would be easier because it's 0 and it goes to 90. So 0 minus 90 is 90. Take the absolute value of it. I know it's negative 90, but take the absolute value and you get regular 90, right? So JHL equals 90 degrees. Okay, now how about LHK? So LHK. All right, well, I'm gonna have to pick here. I'm gonna choose the top set of numbers. Okay, so I see 125 and 90. So 125 minus 90, take the absolute value of it, and I would get 35. So the measure of angle LHK equals 35 degrees. Now I need to go back because it says to classify each angle. So make sure you're doing every part of the directions, right? So this 35 would be acute because it's between 0 and 90. 90 is exactly 90, so it would be a right angle. And 125 is between 90 and 180, so that would be an obtuse angle. Okay, so make sure you have all of those written down there. All right, so identifying congruent angles, you can use a compass and straight edge to construct an angle that has the same measure as a given angle. We are not going to do the construction, so you can continue moving on. It says congruent angles have the same measure. Okay, so measures are equal. So if I said the measure of angle A is equal to the measure of angle, we'll call it D. Well, if I want to talk about those things as objects, then I would say that they're congruent. So then I would drop the M and I would just say angle A is congruent to angle D. Okay, again, congruent is the equal sign with a little squiggly above it. Okay, and example 3 identify the congruent angles labeled in the quilt design. So when you have congruent angles, they mark it with a little arc, okay? And you can see it up here at the top with G, right? I see that little arc. So I want to find the other angle that has one little arc. Well, I see it down here by B. Okay, so I could say that I'm going to call it HGF. Angle HGF is congruent to angle CB, and I cut off A. This should be A here. Angle CBA. All right, now I see another one here that has two arcs, right? So that would be angle GFE. And that is congruent to angle, okay, well, here's the other two arcs, CDA. Okay, it says now that the measure of angle ADC equals 140. So ADC, so that's this two arc, right, is 140. So what is the measure of angle EFG? Well, that also has two arcs. So since they are congruent, the measure of angle EFG also must be 140 degrees. Okay, I think my spacing might have gotten off on my notes again, so I do not need to turn the page, but you may need to, okay, before you see the postulate 1.4. Okay, so this is the angle addition postulate. Okay, it's very similar to the segment addition that we did before. So it says that if P is in the interior, or the inside, right, of angle RST, then the measure of angle RST is equal to the sum of angle RSP and angle PST. So again, if I'm looking at that picture and I want that big outside angle RST, the measure of angle RST is equal to the measure of the angle RSP plus the measure of the angle PST, right? These two small angles, if I took each one of them and added it together, it would make up this big angle on the outside. So if I had, for example, had 25 and 25, then the whole angle itself would be 50. Okay? All right, I need to turn the page now. So if we're looking at example 4 here, it says given that the measure of angle LKN, so LKN, that's this big thing right here, is 145. Maybe I'll write that out there. Find the measure of angle LKM and MKN. Okay, well, I know that this big thing is 145, so I know one is 2x plus 10, and I know the other one is 4x minus 3. Those added together equals 145. Okay, so then I see I have 2x's and 4x's, so I get 6x. 10 minus 3 is 7. Subtract the 7 across, and I get 138, so 6x equals 138. Divide by 6, and you get x equals 23. Okay, done. Well, no, that's not what it asked me for. It didn't ask me what x was. It asked me what the measure of those angles were. Okay, so I'm going to plug it in. So the measure of angle LKM is equal to 2 times 23 plus 10, which would give you 56 degrees. Then I can figure out the measure of angle MKN because I can do 145 minus 56. Or you could plug it in as well, 4 times 23 minus 3. Oops, didn't really need parentheses there. And that would give me 89 degrees. Okay, and again, you can add those two together to make sure that you got 145 and that you did it correctly if you did it the bottom way right here. Okay. All right, angle bisector now. We talked about bisect before, and bisect, remember, means cut in half. So it would just be a ray this time that divides an angle into two congruent angles. So this time it's a ray that cuts an angle in half, okay? And you can see by these little arcs, okay, they are the same measure, okay? So if the whole thing was 100, then I know that W is cutting in half, so now this would be 50 and this would be 50. Okay, obviously I know that's not actually 100, it's just the example I'm using. Okay, construction, we're gonna skip, not doing it right now. So go down to example 5, using a bisector to find angle measures. So it says QS, ray QS bisects this angle, okay? So I'm gonna call this QS. Okay, one of these needs to be P then, PQS, the other one needs to be PQR. PQR is over here, sorry. There we go. Okay, all right. Then it says, and the measure of angle PQS is 24. It wants us to find the measure of angle PQR, this one right here. Well, we just said that this is cutting it in half, right? PS is cutting this in half. So if one of them is 24, then PQR also has to be 24. Well, nope, just kidding. It's not 24, is it? This is why you have to be careful. Where's PQR? This isn't actually what it's looking for. It wants me to look for this big outside. So instead, I'm going to do 2 times 24, because this, yes, is 24, but that would give me 48 degrees. There we go. Don't go too fast like Mrs. Hickory and get something wrong. Okay, that's actually what I meant. Sorry if you couldn't see that. Okay, I'll leave it there for a second. I need to turn the page, and I think you guys do too now. And that's actually where we're done for the day. Okay, so again, let me know if you have any questions. You can email me or ask me in class if you are going to see me.